and was so awesome. But Henry's going to help with that. So you'll be seeing a lot more of Henry, probably getting emails from him. And yeah, thank you, Henry, for joining our team. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that the Prescribed Fire Claims Fund, we've been making a ton of progress on that. And it's going to roll out and be available for people to actually enroll and gain coverage probably in the next few weeks. So I'll make sure to share that with you all when it goes live, but it's pretty exciting and result of about 2 years of work. So yeah, we're going to have a press release and a press conference and really like roll it out in a good way, but we want people to sign up for it. Like, I think that it's going to be really important to show that it's useful and that people want it and need it as we look for more funding for the claims fund, things like that. So just as a reminder, in order to sign up for it, you will have to have a burn boss. So either a federally qualified burn boss, state certified, or a cultural practitioner. So those are the 3 categories of people who can actually sign up for the claims fund. And that'll give you $2 million of coverage for your project. So if you have questions, feel free to email me or just wait for that to roll out, but keep an eye out for that. And I think that's my only other update. So I'll turn it over to Hannah and Miller.
Great, Lynn. Yeah, that's great news. Exciting. Yeah, I'm Hannah. I'm the program manager for the Plumas County Fire Safe Council, and I helped to establish the Plumas Underburn Co-op, which is our local PBA in 2019. And Miller Bailey is with me from the Watershed Research and Training Center. He found out just this morning that he was going to be presenting. So thanks for that, Miller. And what we are talking about are alternative and creative funding sources for prescribed fire. I think that our community has had a lot of conversation in the past about grant funding, grant opportunities. I know that we all have our wins and losses in that arena. And there have been some creative ideas around where to access grant funds, but we're sort of putting that aside today to talk about some other maybe possible, maybe more wild types of ideas for creative funding, sustainable funding. Well, I took that away, but Miller has some info to share along those lines too.
Awesome, thanks. Excuse me, awesome. It's good to see everybody this morning, afternoon, maybe even. Yeah, when we started thinking about this topic, I was thinking about the importance of that funding, both creative and structured, and the importance of organizers and facilitators, PBA leaders who are organizing their community, hosting burn trailers, community equipment, and so there's certainly a need for that type of funding. And so then the question is kind of the creative side of it all, and how to ask this question without Hannah continued to ask me this question several times this morning, and I kept falling back into the micro successes that I've been having in the grant world, and using a little supply money here and a little grant money here and making it all kind of work for me in weird and creative ways. But then she's honing me in on that question of how to actually get away or find something new. Is anybody finding success out there outside of grants? And then the kind of the different ways that might look.
So Miller, were you just posing that question to the group just then?
Not yet, just you,
Not
Hannah.
yet. Okay.
Am I ready to pose that?
Well, I have a bit more of a lead into that. So my thoughts in this, the Plumas Underburn Co-op, we've been totally grant funded. So for us, it's all theoretical, looking at other opportunities. But when I look at it, we are putting a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of funding into training folks training them sometimes with NWCG quals. And so looking at ways that we can leverage that to get some sort of income potentially from agencies or elsewhere. And is there potential to tap into wildfire suppression funds to support our prescribed fire initiatives? So that's part of my thought processes. And also, how do we get away from, I know that a lot of us are AD or utilizing OC crews where the individual is being paid by the agency. In some cases, like potentially in our case, we as a nonprofit can still be paying our staff for these assignments. They don't need to be paid by the agency. So then how do we have an agreement or in a contract that allows that funding to come back to us as an organization so that we can continue to support our programs? So those are some of my thoughts. Miller and I have a few models that we want to share, but first we really do want to hear if this group is already having successes with alternative or creative funding sources. Specifically for your prescribed fire initiatives, I think that there are hand crews out there doing work and getting paid to do that work for fuel reduction, but specifically for prescribed fire. Anyone making money? Okay, well, maybe we can share some of the models in it, and it might spark your memory, or we'll also just be coming up with some wild ideas later.
Hey, Hannah, this is Jared Childress.
Yeah, great.
I'll just throw one thing out. And this has been kind of unintended income, and it's very small amounts. But when we do workshops that take a lot of work to put together, like a basic Wildland Firefighter 2 workshop or like an S290 course or something like that, that's, days of prep, multiple instructors, lots of gear. We've had problems, I'm sure, like lots of other people, of folks signing up and then not showing. And we often even have like large wait lists too. So it's kind of a bummer when people don't show, because that means people on the wait list didn't get that opportunity. And so we've basically started charging more and more for our workshops, which used to be free, just to cut down on that. And we offer half scholarships and full scholarships basically upon request. And I'll just, be clear, we're essentially grant funded, like in reality. But that has started to add up where, we have a handful of thousands of dollars kind of available to us kind of in a slush format, which has been useful. So it's a thing. It happens, but it's like you couldn't pay someone's salary, if, like at least with the amounts we're charging.
Yeah, that's great, Jared. That's a good point. That for us, this year was the first year at our Trex event that we asked for a registration fee. And wow, it was great. We could, buy stuff for a barbecue, and that little bit of funding did help. I think what I run into is a concern that we're creating more barriers to access, because our intent from the beginning has been able to create access to training outside of the agency. But like you said, if we have a method for scholarship or waiving those fees, I don't think that is such a concern. Cool. Any other thoughts along those lines? Okay. Well, there's the TNC model that we could start with. Miller, do you want to talk about what that looks like, the OC prescribed fire model?
Yeah, so kind of some alternative options. One of is the Nature Conservancy has an on-call crew. I don't know the exact numbers, but I imagine they're about 100, 120 strong at this point. And generally speaking, these are practitioners available nationally for assignments of a week to 3 weeks at a time. And so it serves kind of two purposes. It can bolster a partner who has possible funding or projects, but needs a workforce, but only a temporary workforce to get the job done. And then it also creates an environment where we're keeping practitioners employed. We're keeping practitioners with experience. We're sending them across the country, or I use they strongly. I have nothing to do with it, but I'm excited for it, and I think it's a good option for my folks in particular, and for folks that are looking to get their people out. It can be done in a couple different ways. You do take on temporary employment through the Nature Conservancy. There's a couple stepping stones. Anything under like 4 weeks or something of that nature is pretty easy HR switch. Anything greater than that, the job has to fly competitively type idea. And then I think there's a general seasonality to a 6-month max for assignment throughout the year. But that kind of option is out there, and it's super exciting because of its ability to I know the program manager, Jeremy, and he's making it in an environment where if you have family needs, he's trying to meet you where you're at in life, and also get you across the country in a timely manner to put good fire on the ground.
Well, so then, my thought is, how do we locally as PBAs potentially have a more localized similar model to that, where we're not going all over the country, but where we have a prescribed fire force that can also be on call for suppression in the summer. And that's actually something that Logan is working on right now for us, and we should have some alternate models for doing that in the near future. But is anyone else considering this or doing it, or know anyone other than TNC doing it?
I'm just familiar with the Karuk tribe has an on-call fire force too, and I'm one of those individuals. And that's for both wildfire and mostly for wildfire, but I've utilized it to go and assist them with prescribed burns.
Cool. Do you know how long that's been around for?
Awesome.
I think just a couple of years. And it's very, just centered to their agency and their program. But it, and I don't know, at what frequency they really engage that workforce, because they have, a pretty significant capacity within their fire program, with seasonal and long-term or, full-time positions too. But it's also an opportunity to host qualifications as well for partners.
I tried to get on that on-call crew this year, and they're not accepting more people. It sounds like they got enough from last year. That whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, sweet. I'm gonna look into that some more and see how they're managing it. Sounds great.
I don't know if it's very relevant to the question, Hannah, but we're doing something like that in Humboldt just because a lot of our support for the PBAs comes from the local government firefighters who also contract with Cal OES and Cal Fire in the summer. So it ends up being similar, but it's not necessarily a useful route. I don't know.
Well, it could be actually. I mean, that's one of the things that we're considering is if POC ends up funding fire departments to be the ones hosting our prescribed fire crew, and then they're also able to go out on suppression assignments. Is that what you're saying? It?
Yeah, Yeah, and we're working right now to develop a fuels crew, local government kind of regional fuels crew as well to keep them busy when they're not doing the other two. We've got kind of pretty major economic decline in Humboldt County right now, and looking for some way to keep people moving forward. So piecing all those three together for the people that are enthusiastic about fire on both sides of it is the route we're working on.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll follow up with more questions on that too, as we're developing our stuff. Okay, other models. Just a thought that maybe the Forest Service could just pay us for individuals that we send to prescribe burn, activities that they're undertaking. Anyone doing that, not as AD or OC, but with an agreement where if you show up day of a burn, you're getting paid for it? No.
We don't have an agreement for our personnel to do that. And we do have a burn assist contract where we have fire contractors kind of on call through an agreement with the Klamath National Forest. It's specifically through a project, a forest health grant project, Big Fuel Break. So, and the RCD is managing it. And so it's kind of less related to the PBA specifically, but part of us setting this up with the Klamath was kind of theoretically that we could potentially utilize it if we needed resources for burns. So it's a little bit of a different purpose and situation, but since the contract is through the RCD, subcontracting fire contractors, and it's on a project with the Forest Service. So the intent of it is that, if the Forest Service needs support, we can call these contractors to go and burn with them. So, it's not our employees necessarily, but it's sort of kind of a somewhat similar mechanism. So, essentially what I'm saying is, there are templates and examples of these like burn assistance contracts, specifically on the Klamath, and I don't know if there's other forests using that, but there is that mechanism.
Yeah, and it sounds like in that situation, those contractors are being paid with grant funds. The forest hasn't put any money into that agreement for that purpose.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's very kind of project specific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, still a useful template though, potentially, yeah.
We have similar agreements in place with the Shasta T, Shasta Trinity, excuse me, and currently grant funded to just work on each other's ground. But the agreement's in place, and we do hope to move to a more MOU style, just a contract for service when it happens, where it happens.
Cool. Okay, I have another idea. Miller and I were both excited to hear feedback from the group because I feel like this could be polarizing, but there's the potential that certified CARX burn bosses could be charging or be paid for their review of burn plans. And again, that's probably not a huge source of income, but a source of income. And anyone have any thoughts about that? No, no one cares at all.
Yeah, I'll actually ask a question to your question. Why would that be controversial? It seems like if somebody's writing a burn plan, I mean, it's perfectly, I think everyone probably here has experienced paying a burn boss to write a burn plan. If they're writing a comprehensive burn plan or doing comprehensive editing, not just, like a quick review kind of type thing. It seems like that's a service that is already being offered. So I'm not really sure why that would even be controversial at this point.
Sure, that's a good point. So my thought is not the writing of the burn plan, but the review required by a CarX burn boss in order for that plan to be covered. Oh no, I'm getting my wires crossed, but to be covered
with the liability coverage for Senate Bill 332.
Okay, thanks, Lania. And my understanding is, the few folks who are CarX currently, and there will be more in the near future, are just totally overwhelmed by the amount of work that's creating for them. And yeah, it makes sense to pay them for that work. Where I think it, to me, could be controversial is we're trying to reduce barriers to burning. I mean, I think that is the intent of all of us here. And so anytime, we put a price tag on something, I feel like, that's a choice that we're making. So those are my thoughts.
I guess to kind of key into what Jared was saying, kind of like the S courses, I think charge when there's money and when there's not, don't. Is kind of, I mean, I don't know if that's like official or not, but if CAL FIRE is paying for a bunch of burn plans to be written, yeah, put some money in the review. I think it's great. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
No, perfect. Tracy, you got your hand raised.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, as we've been talking about how do we build the capacity to do burning statewide, that we need to really be looking at it as a profession, and to support that profession. We had the same issue with the restoration industry like 20 years ago. And so I think that the approach is, yes, let's support burn bosses. Let's make sure they have everything they need to be efficient, effective professionals, health insurance, training, all that kind of stuff. And then where we want to, as PBAs and RCDs and others, to support certain landowners who need that support, then we find that funding to pay that. But I think absolutely that burn bosses should be getting paid, and paid well, because it's a really unique field. I'm a forester. Like, I think a burn boss is getting up towards that, right? It's a license. And so it needs to be recognized and respected and paid well. So let's build the capacity.
Yeah, totally. And my hope is that burn bosses are being paid well, regardless of whether or not they're reviewing burn plans. I absolutely agree with that. Brittany, you have something too?
Two things, I guess. One thing is absolutely they should be paid for their time. But if the segment of Carrick's burn bosses in the state are so small, they can be so competitive and start raising rates to the point that it inhibits certain people's ability to hire a burn boss, that could be an issue. The other thing that I foresee is between the Carrick's burn boss availability and the liability fund, that eventually there's probably going to be a bottleneck there of people wanting to access that liability fund and not being able to, because there's just too much. That's all.
Something that comes to mind is like, who's asking for the CarX review, and like, do they have money to pay for the CarX review? Because I think if they, I don't know. Because if we're just like, we keep paying each other, then what's the point, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think that sort of echoes what was said earlier too. Monica?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I just want to voice support for paying them for their time, especially if there are only so few right now for all of the state of California. And they're putting in all this work to do the reviews. And I mean, the function of like a circular process of exchanging money back and forth really defines a mutual aid function, which in many ways is what a PBA is designed to function as. And especially given that then the bulk of the work beyond designing a burn plan is actually doing the burn, which again functions in many ways as a mutual aid network where landowners show up to volunteer for one another's burns. A lot of the rest of the funds are covered beyond, of course, getting funding for equipment and all that stuff can be kind of hefty, but then the bulk of the work beyond those things is covered. So to me, it makes sense for the few burn bosses who are out there to get paid for their time and their efforts and their training. I mean, the substantial training that is required.
Cool, thanks. Lania?
Yeah, I agree with that too. I was just gonna say, I do think that this, like, it's important for us as PBAs to be trying to think about and empower and lift up the people in our PBAs who might want to pursue the burn boss certification. And then for us as PBAs to provide that as like part of the package. If we have time, money to pay a burn boss who's a PBA member to do some review, or if that's part of the PBA coordinator's position description, is that's something they're going to do for PBA members. Like, it's something we can provide as part of the package of a PBA. So we could have a model of just a bunch of private contractors running around doing that, or that it's more socialized as part of PBA culture, that's something we provide. So I know, like, within the Humboldt PBA, we now have, well, I don't know, Kai, is your certification complete yet? Like Jeff, me, Kai, a couple others, within our PBA, we have a handful of CARXs. So I would think that we would offer that as part of what the support we give.
Right, well, I think that gets kind of to the heart of my question, is not, are people charging for private professional services? Are we charging as PBAs as a way to bring in income to our programs? Right, I mean, that's sort of the question that I'm asking. And it sounds like what you're saying is, we have grant funds or whatever funds do it. But will we always have grant funds, I guess is the question. Sorry, Jared, you've been waiting.
Oh yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, I was just gonna say, at least from my experience with prescribed burn association work, is it's really useful to think of things as flexible as possible. So, you could be working with a ranch that is 5,000 acres and is, land rich, but money poor, as the saying goes. But you could be working with a ranch that's the same size, that's just got tons of cash. And so it's going to vary. And then, of course, it varies on how much work is being done. Like, are you having to do a site visit? Are you having to hold the landowner's hand kind of through maybe them writing their own burn plan? Like, how much are you having to work with them? All these things. And then, I think probably everyone on this call could figure out some kind of, I'm glad mutual aid came up as a conversation, like, well, what's a mutual aid, component to this? Like, is it access to that land? Is it access to hunt on that land, or whatever value you might be able to have by that relationship? So there is the relationship building component to it. But also, one of the things I've been starting to think about is PBAs a little bit like volunteer fire departments. And volunteer fire departments, for the most part, they do get some grants, but they're mostly funded via community support. And so I think that's something that is just slightly off the topic of the burn plan stuff, but it's something for us to start thinking about, is like, what does that community support component look like, and how does that get leveraged and tapped into, which I haven't tried to do yet. So it's a question.
Cool, I like that question. I think we should bookmark it to come back to maybe in this discussion. But Tracy, you've got something?
Yeah, well, just I think kind of tying it together, and what I've heard from people is I think there's the whole range out there, and really being case by case specific, that where we have grant funds and we can offer the burn boss, the CRX burn boss to qualified members or whomever, then we do it, right? And I think also tying into what Jared was saying, like having a fee for service chart, this is what we have available. So if maybe you're not part of the PBA, or you just need some help and you can afford it, you can hire burn boss, you can rent our trailer, blah, 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 right? So having all those fees out. And then there's, that's at the organizational level. And then also I agree, Jared, like, PBA memberships, all that kind of stuff to get community support to help fund that, fundraisers, events, right? To have that slush fund. And then there's the individual who can, so like I do a lot of work with organizations, but I also sometimes just donate my time as a forester to help people. And so I can make that personal choice if I want to go donate my time on some project or not. I think having that whole range, and as long as we're all really communicating about it, so that those burn bosses aren't feeling like they're expected to donate their time, anything like that, I think that gives us a lot of options.
Miller, jump in.
Yeah, I had two things come up. I think that positive first communication, setting the right expectation. Most of us are running PBAs, fee for service, a barbecue. We're setting that expectation so we can have those, we can develop those conversations, and then we're protecting ourselves, our members, and our landowners through waivers and understanding risk management through partnerships and neighbors, and permits and policies that get worked on multiple levels. And then I was thinking the bottleneck came up too. There's some workload bottlenecks, and I'm really excited about those bottlenecks, because if I was to use a story, it would be like the bottle was closed forever, and Lania and team opened the bottle, and now I want to show powers that be how much is behind this. And so I'm not afraid of the bottleneck. I want to overpower it. I want to close it with busyness, and then start talking about the real numbers we need. Anyways, I'm excited.
What a metaphor. That was great. Cool. If there are no other thoughts about the CARX burn plan review specifically, oh, sorry, Lindsay, I missed that. Go ahead.
It's okay. I don't want to, this has been a great conversation, and, my wheels are kind of sitting here turning on how we might, apply, could work towards applying this model to our PBA. And, I hate to kind of play the devil's advocate, but equity comes to mind when we're talking about, oh, well, we'll just charge the people who have money and not charge people who don't have money. It's like, okay, where do you draw the line? And also, that's not really fair. And I also, have to come from the perspective that I work for an RCD, which is a, special district of the state of California. And, I don't really have experience with their fee for service work and policies. They do that kind of more on the water side of things. But I mean, I know from our procurement side, when we contract out, there's we have policies and responsibilities to be, objective and fair. And so, it is a little, it is kind of challenging, trying to crack this egg and make sure that, yes, I believe that we need to be paying people for their services and what they bring, but also, create equity in this space where kind of there's the same expectations and availability for everybody.
Right. I mean, at our organization, we can't do that with any of our other programs. We have policies for all of our cost shares and all of that. But I think that mutual aid piece maybe is the leveraging point around that conversation. That is interesting to me as well. Brian?
I guess a clarifying question I have for the question you brought up, Hannah, is there seems to also often to be a distinction when it comes to funding. There's a PBA and then there's all the surrounding organizations supporting that PBA. And so like some PBAs don't even really exist as an organization, you know, or one that has money. So anyways, that just makes it all that much more confusing because like you all said, if you're an RCD, you can't just be like, I don't know if you can do sliding scale or not. I mean, that seems completely fair to me is to always do sliding scale money things, but yeah, you have different concerns than you say a PBA might. So I don't know if it's, that's just an important distinction. What do we mean by PBA and who's getting that money we're charging?
Yeah, totally. That's a fair point.
Hannah, it's one thing that comes to mind is like, you can be like, hey, here's our full price. And if you can't pay that, hey, you can pay this lower price, or hey, like we could also do it for free if you really can't afford it too.
Yeah, I just really quickly, sorry, Hannah, if I could just, I'll make it quick. I know for us, for a lot of our ag programs, we serve underserved, we have grants that say underserved, you know, and then there's a, like, kind of like you said, Lindsay, like, where's the threshold? For us, I know we have a grant where under 400,000 a year for a farm, we have options for you. So yeah, I mean, it could be that as PBAs build capacity, we build in something like that to make sure that we're properly, fully serving the community. Just wanted to add that in.
Great. Yeah, Tracy, you had some more too.
Yeah, I just wanted on the home hardening and defensible space side of the thing, the state and the feds are starting to use, well, not the feds, the state is proposing to FEMA and all that, to use this average mean income, and that if you're below, at, or above, then you can use like different percentage of cost share. So it's a way that we're finding to start using to like have some numbers, and then but we're also doing it, a lot of it's based on trust, like not asking people to submit any documents, but just trust, like where do you fit in this and what can you pay, and giving people that choice. And then also, you know, I think a lot of us have done this in fundraising stuff, is that do you want to, you know, leaving a blank at the bottom if you want to make an additional donation, because I think you're going to find that there are people that can't afford it and want to support it. And so you don't want to close out that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe that's a good transition to come back to the community support ideas. So you know, Matt put in the chat pancake breakfast. He's on the volunteer fire department. He knows all about that. But I mean, is that the sort of thing that we're talking about? Any other types of ideas?
I know that well, me and Hannah and Matt, we're doing a wildfire preparedness day thing, and we're gonna it's for our organization's Fireside Council, but like we're invited organizations to set up booths, so we're gonna set up a PBA booth, and we're gonna sell hot dogs and t-shirts and stuff like that. So just a little bit of income, but also hopefully a little bit of networking with folks too at the same time.
Yeah, the events are always fun. Lindsay, I have a question for you. As a special district, do you have the opportunity to say, have people vote on whether or not they have some sort of, you know, like property tax component that goes to your organization? No.
No, our RCD does not have any base funding. It's all grants or fee for service, but you know, there's very, very little fee for service. It's pretty much 100% grants.
Yeah. A little while back, one of our board members was looking into whether or not we could become a special district so that we could potentially access those sources of funds. It was not something that we chose to pursue ultimately. But anyone else here have experience with that?
And I guess I should clarify that, like, that yes, like that is a potential that, you know, as a special district, that is a mechanism that could be setup, and I'm aware that there are RCDs in the state that do have like a tax base funding. But Siskiyou County is not really a place that likes to see taxes increase in general, so we haven't even considered that, trying to climb that mountain.
You could put like a really great t-shirt though, like we are burning your cash. We're taxing you and burning it at the same time. You could that shirt.
Yeah, everyone would just love that around here. I could tell you about some popular bumper stickers, but I won't.
It seems like potentially VFDs have that potential too if they were going to, or if they're associated with a PBA. If they're in a place that doesn't mind some taxes. Okay, other community support ideas? Okay, it's a tough one. Miller, did we have any other things to share?
A couple things on my list where I couldn't break away from, where it was the accessing Forest Service AD work to just support some key members when and where we could, using you had mentioned earlier we have this trained workforce, how do we leverage it? And that is something that we do in-house, and it's for my organization is difficult. It's a challenge. We are providing to the emergency response, to the skills and experience of those practitioners, but we have to house the administrative cost of supporting that person going that route. Sometimes that looks like gear and equipment. So there is a cost associated with supporting of that Forest Service scale AD stuff. There's value. Lindsay, go ahead.
I'll just add that I've had some conversations with some of our Forest Service representatives around here about establishing agreements for, PBA members that maintain NWCG qualifications, about, assisting on burns, and their response, one of the primary concerns around that is liability, and they see as having the AD employees, they would support PBA folks as getting signed up as AD employees, particularly just for the liability piece, is like if something happens, it's covered under their purview. And so just wanted to throw that in there, that I think from the forest perspective, aiding is desirable over like setting up an agreement, particularly for any liability concerns. At least that was a big part of the conversation that I had.
Yeah, understood. That is to be expected, I suppose. Okay. Miller, did you say you had another?
I had one last thing and then I'm out. The general trading of resources is kind of one of my biggest micro successes. And so I am, back to my grant world, because that's where I am utilizing my local projects. I'm going out to help partners I know my partners are going to do the same for me. So I'm managing my workload by just going out all hands, all lands style, and never trying to turn a dollar around on some of that bigger equipment moving around the field. it doesn't help with this, but I'm always excited to do that.
Yeah, Lindsay.
Yeah, I think that that's like one of the biggest strengths that we have, especially with this growing network of prescribed fire practitioners. And I think one thing that we could all, I mean, I'm saying we, because I know I could be better at this, and I assume others could be, is, and this takes a considerable workload and capacity lift, which is why I haven't done it. But trying to track the true costs of our burns, including those leveraged resources. Because I get this question a lot of like, how much does it cost for you to do a PBA burn? And I'm like, well, I could tell you, you know, how much my time, you know, it took planning it and, you know, my staff, but, you know, that does not include the plethora of resources that show up, people that drive, you know, from halfway across the state, you know, to come and burn with us, you know, bringing apparatus, you know, we don't track those costs. But I think, you know, if we could all be better at tracking that and showing how much we are leveraging resources, I think could be a powerful like selling point for, you know, funding PBA coordination, because, you know, really, you know, my time going into it is a small percentage of what, you know, is actually brought at the end of the day.
Yeah. Is there anyone who knows how much the burns cost in those sort of terms?
We've been tracking ours pretty well. I think, you know, Lenya set up a format for it, and then we've been just keeping track for the grant matches. So we definitely have apparatus. It's a little harder to get a good value on the personnel, but it's definitely project dependent and how complex they are and how many resources they require.
Is that like a spreadsheet, Kai?
Yeah, I'd be happy to share what we've got.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds like something that could go into our Cal PBA Google Drive.
Yeah, I can either throw it up on the podio or just shoot it to you.
Yeah, either, both are great.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Cool. Any other thoughts along those lines? Okay. Yeah, Miller brought this up to me when we were talking earlier today, and then Matt just brought it up to me as well. This is a grant funded collaboration, but there are the all hands all lands models where you get a grant that you know, is covering all the entities who are likely to show up in a region or across a state, so that those funds are always just there for whomever is showing up. Miller, did you want to say anything else about that? Or Matt?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Well, any other wild, creative, alternative ideas or just thoughts about what we've already talked about? Yeah, Ryan.
This is just a thought. It's I hope it's not misplaced or annoying, but I just find myself when we're talking about PBA funding, like there's really seems to be like different things we're talking about funding, just kind of keying into what I said before. Like there's like, you know, I know there's always the project of getting people who are active PBA members money, and whether that's actually going through a PBA or anything like that, you're just like sliding them work, right? Like to keep them kind of in the game. And that's kind of, I don't know if that's what you're all talking about with like AD stuff, where you're like, that person's getting paid for the day. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I don't work with federal partners, so that's not part of my piece. But my main point being is just, it's probably worth really like fleshing out those categories. Like, are we just trying to get money into the community? And how do we do that? Through like getting grants and then distributing it to people? Are we trying to get money for a to like stand up a crew, that's different. And if we're trying to get money, I think what Lindsay was saying, for all the organizing, which is often through our organizations, and those are just all, to me, those are all really different projects of getting money, although they serve the same function. And so I think it's worth really parsing those things out and talking about them clearly when we're talking about. So I don't know if that's interesting or helpful. That's what I've been thinking about.
Yeah, fair. I think those are really two very distinct things, which is maybe what I was trying to articulate, is that there are the individuals who can be paid, and there are avenues for them to be paid, and avenues for them to, you know, get task book sign-offs and experience. But just speaking from our organization, we have a pretty significant level of coordination, and that's all dependent on grant funds currently, and that's the piece that makes me nervous. Certainly larger equipment purchases as well. You know, those sometimes can or cannot be made with grant funds. Yeah, other thoughts from other entities?
Well, I like the way that Brian had mentioned, you know, what is a PBA, and I think that's one of its strengths. Is it really is an amoeba of a shape, of a thing, of a partnership. There are partners with fiscal sponsorship that can manage equipment and liability, funding and maintenance of the vehicles, and that's an important partner. And then you have this, you know, the PBA to me is a workforce, an organized workforce with a cache of tools that nobody asks questions about and doesn't really need to be maintained more than your average sanding and repainting. And so I really think that, you know, what we describe as a PBA is just this strength of a partnership in so many ways. Yeah.
Yeah, so then it just comes down to what does each PBA use its money for? What do they need it for? Yeah, Brian.
Sorry, just another opinion, but I don't know. I'm curious. I'm just having a hard time imagining that any kind of fee for service is ever going to pay for the organizing required in a PBA. I just don't see it. I can see it paying for people's labor, maybe, if you get people with money kicking down private landowners or the government. But unless it's like a grant from the government or something like that, I'm having a hard time seeing those numbers. I'm wondering what other people. Please tell me I'm wrong. I would love for that not to be true. But that's what I'm saying.
I think is the intent just like, you know, we're accumulating money and maybe someday it'll lead to us buying some equipment. I think that's, or equipment or something else. I think that's the intent, right?
Well, I think it depends on the goals of each PBA. I would love for there to be an answer that paid for all of our time and coordination that was not grant funds. And that's why I keep bringing it up, and that's why we're talking about it today. But I think the reality of where we're at right now is, yeah, what you said, Logan, or, you know, accumulating what we can for what, you know, whatever benefit we need it for.
Brittany just emailed me with a few questions, and I thought they're pretty good questions about how like Puck runs its organization. But and forgive me, I had to step out, so I'm not sure if I missed any of this. But Brittany was kind of just asking like what we charge per landowner, and I don't think we've really talked about that today. But the way Puck's set up is that landowner pays an initial $50 membership fee, and then that's kind of the flat thing, a one-time thing. And then after that, each time that Puck helps a landowner burn, we ask for like a $20 per acre donation, and then a reimbursement for like fuel, so like drip torches, chainsaws, small engines, whatever. And that's kind of all we charge, so it's super cheap for Puck. But like it does add up, and like I think it's been pretty helpful just buying like little maintenance things along the way, and like fixing stuff on our trailer so far.
Do you ever have a problem with somebody saying they'll pay and not paying? I guess that's what I was wondering is like, do they kind of like sign an agreement before, or like, is it just like, we trust you to do the right thing?
Yeah, I've never, I mean, I don't know if Hannah and Matt have had like hard times getting money out of people, but you should just ask nicely. I haven't had trouble. I think just some of our landowners that have been in Puck for a while are just kind of like lazy and just like, you just have to ask them personally to pay their like membership fee. But like, or they're just busy, not lazy, um, but yeah, for like fees, like I think like Miller said, you just covered at the beginning of your discussion with this landowner that, hey, like, and that's why we include it in our membership like form is, hey, these are like things that you're expected to pay, which also includes like food for people that came and help out. So that's just kind of setting a baseline. And then, yeah, I guess if someone like argues with you, yeah, you can just refer back to this thing they signed. But like, I don't think there's been a huge issue with like landowners making donations, because I think most of them are, because it's going back to them, right? Like it's going back to everyone that's in the group. I don't know. I think that's yeah.
And that's something we have to figure out for Lassen is because I think is like, who's the money go to? Does it go to the RCD? And like, how do we do that? Because there's some weird stuff with like RCDs and taking.
That's how we're set up. Is it just goes to the Fire Safe Council? Like that's how we manage our money. Is it's through our parent organization. Because Puck isn't really anything official ever. Like it's it's like not any official document or anything or MOU. It just exists.
I don't know about the RCD's capability for taking donations as a government agency, so.
Yeah, I don't know about anything about that.
We gotta talk about that.
Yeah, Lindsay.
I can't speak definitively because we've also never accepted money at the RCD, but one thing I've heard, which again I would need to do some research and fact check this, but because we're special districts, even if I think we can accept funds and donations. I mean, we do fee for service, so there's a mechanism. But I think we can also receive donations, but one caveat is that they don't qualify for like tax refunds, or like you would if you donated to like a 501c3 nonprofit. So this is where the power of the partnership kind of comes in, or one of the many ways they do for our PBA is that we have watershed councils that are also part of the PBA. And so one of the watershed councils actually kind of set up a fund for PBA donations that, and some of those are, landowner reimbursements for fuel and stuff. And then we use those to like, buy our t-shirts, and then we sold our t-shirts and that kind of, so it's like this very, very small, like seed money. And so, I think that there are mechanisms, and John raised his hand and he knows a lot more about fiscal responsibilities of RCDs, so is probably going to correct me, which is, I'm glad you're here, John.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, you are correct. RCDs can take donations. We have, but more importantly, what Tama County has done is we set up a nonprofit, the Tama Conservation Fund, and that allows us for people to donate to take the tax breaks. Also, it allows us to go for funding that RCDs can't go for, like private entities, in our case would be like the McConnell Foundation. For a lot of our equipment came through the foundation, and RCDs wouldn't be able to apply for that funding.
Cool. All right, Jared, what do you got?
Yeah, I was thinking kind of like maybe a public radio model where during burns we get on the radio and do like a pledge drive and bother everyone until they give money. No, but in all seriousness, I think one thing that's useful, and this isn't true at all for our Central Coast PBA right now, kind of the people who are working for the PBA just kind of do everything, but is trying to tease out a little more like who is doing what and why they're doing it and how their funding is happening. And so maybe some of the like the work that is meetings like this or answering emails or just a lot of the stuff that's really hard to pay for outside of grant funds, trying to attach that to people that are hard funded in some fashion, or at least have more durable funding. And then, kind of the model that was talked about with Puck, where you're bringing in small amounts of money for some of the kind of the fees and such that are associated with just the actual burning. And then the big costs that tend to be out there is like a lot of the burn boss type fees and who's bringing what apparatus and things like that, trying to kind of break those costs out into a separate category, and so that it's much more flexible. So that's just, I'm sure a lot of people are already doing some version of that.
Cool, sweet. Thanks for all that input. Also, I hope everyone's seeing there's some ideas in the chat to raffles fun, and then a link to the Ventura County RCD 501c3. Okay. Well, we have till 12:30, but if no one else is prepared to fill that time, I think we can wrap up. Are there any closing thoughts? Oh, Lindsay, yeah.
I have, I know I've really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you, Hannah, for facilitating. And, because I think that moving forward, we definitely do need to be creative and figure out how to fill these gaps. But, and I hate to like defer to the status quo, but, these burns like provide a public benefit. And so I do still really believe that, our public agencies need to be investing in this work, especially because, at least on our side, like when we invite CAL FIRE and they come and assist with our burns, or even just, play contingency, like they claim those acres as their own acres, but, they might not actually be paying for any of that. So, so I am still dedicated to advocating for, sustained grant programs or some sort of sustained funding, because, really, like we need mechanisms to sustain the longevity of these programs and partnerships and associations. And so, yes, and, all of the above, like, let's be creative, let's make pancakes, let's hold a raffle, but let's also still just advocate, for ourselves and try to get, our agencies and grant funders to see the value and make the necessary investments. So I just wanted to put that plug in.
That's fair. Yeah.
Just as another kind of creative thing, Zeke Lunder and I were kicking around the idea of, if we had a PBA burn, we could be doing the PBA burn, but then like charge the public like $5 and they could get a ticket and watch the burn, and we could like sell concessions and things like that and make it like a movie. And then that pivoted into a kind of the talk of like a good fire festival, or like a PBA, festival of some kind. And that idea hasn't really been flushed out very much, but I don't know, maybe someone here can contribute or run with that or have other inputs. But, the Fire Safe Council in Butte does the grazing festival, and we're like, well, we could do a prescribed fire festival. How would that look? I don't know, just another thing to throw it out there. But who doesn't like popcorn and fire, so.
Awesome. I love it. So I'll be there. Oh. Okay, well, thank you all so much. I've really appreciated this conversation, and it's always so fun to talk to you all. Lena, did you want to close it all? Do we have any thoughts about the next fireside chat?
Someone else may know more than I, but I think there was conversation of doing something on social media and communications with Annie Leverage from the Watershed Center. I don't think we have it scheduled yet, though. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't have anything on my calendar. So yeah, our little team will work on that. But should we take a second to get other suggestions of things people are interested in?
That sounds good.
I mean, I'm assuming like once the claims fund rolls out, we might want to spend some time walking through that, either in May or June. So we can plan to do that for sure. So I'll write that down. Any other ideas? Things that are top of mind?
Since we have a great room full of nerds, maybe we could do some like fire monitoring protocols.
Ooh.
I know CAL FIRE has been working on kind of their protocols. State Parks has stuff going on, and it'd be interesting because then you get a better picture of what kind of is the standard that's emerging. And so hence, if we are doing any type of monitoring, you know, how best to kind of match it up with the standards that are out there.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We could get Joe Restano to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he joined us about a year ago and was like kind of starting his process. So yeah, that's a great idea. Other thoughts? Okay, well, that's a good set of 3. So we'll probably do the communications one next month, maybe the claims fund, and then the fire monitoring protocols.
I think the one that we thought of originally too a while back was like a cultural burning one, cultural practitioner one.
That's a good one too.
And then also a question of when's the next in-person PBA leaders shindig?
Yes, right. I know it's almost been a year since
Yeah.
Santa Barbara. Yeah, we need to put our heads together on that too. Great point. Okay. Oh, one other thing is, so I'm helping put together the Association for Fire Ecology Congress. It's going to be in Monterey in December. And I'm hoping that there will be a special session. I know Barb jumped off already, but I think she's going to try to pitch a special session on PBAs. So I'm hoping that some of you, like, I'm really hoping we can get more practitioners at this Congress. A lot of times these AFI conferences are pretty heavy. I mean, they're ecology conferences, but they're pretty heavy on the science side and not as much on like people who are actually doing stuff on the ground. So it'd be really cool if any of you want to come to that. And if it's the first week of December, and I think it'll be really cool, but I'd love to see more people like us in the room. And if you have like really exciting ideas for plenary speakers or anything like that, let me know, because we're in the process of doing some of that coordination too.
Is the registration open?
Yes. Yeah, it is, I think. And the call for special sessions and the call for like all the different kinds of things is open right now. So you can propose different like they have different categories like special session or fire circles, different things like that. So it'd be great to see the PBA community come in, be there.
It's a great photo on the website, Lenya.
Yeah, that's a lot of my pictures, I know. Anyway, okay, well, I think that's it. So yeah, we'll be in touch about the May meeting and we'll see you all then.
Do some of the organizers of these fireside chats just want to stick around just to touch base on coordinating these next ones?
Sure. Sounds
All right,
good.
good to see you guys.
Okay, thanks, Kai. See y'all later.